Here it goes. All right, we are live. Awesome, awesome. Happy Tuesday, everybody. This is Aaron Eden from Moves the Needle. Moves the Needle really exists to help enterprises behave a lot more like startups through rapid experimentation, customer development, lean startup principles, all those good things. I have the pleasure of having Tristan Kromer with us today. And welcome to the show, Tristan. Let me give you a second to introduce yourself and let everybody know why they should listen to every single word you say.
Oh, they should certainly not listen to anything I say. They should,
or nothing, that's okay too.
Yeah, or nothing. The only thing useful that I honestly provide to people is a sounding board to ask extremely dumb questions that they might not have asked themselves. That's kind of my sole purpose, is not to tell people what to do, but to challenge them on their assumptions and the way that they're doing things currently. And hopefully, through those questions, to find some efficiencies and some untested hypotheses.
I love it. And what organization are you with?
So I work independently. I operate 50% of my time I spend with larger organizations, accelerators, enterprises, with Kromer LLC, so just as an independent consultant. And the other half of my time I volunteer with Lean Startup Circle. Lean Startup Circle is the grassroots decentralized organization around the Lean Startup community. It operates in over 80 cities around the world. We have meetups going from Silicon Valley to Tokyo to Beijing. There's one in Moscow. Actually, I don't think that's a Lean Startup Circle. It's a different one. We've got one in Ramallah. That's kind of one of the coolest ones to me. There's like 5 Lean Startup Circles in Saudi Arabia, which kind of blows my mind. It might warrant a trip at some point, but so really, the Lean Startup movement is kind of exploding everywhere, and I'm happy to volunteer a lot of my time to the startup community to help coordinate and organize that.
Wow, that is super exciting. It's really amazing to me how much things have blown up over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting to see the push and pull between startups and enterprises now, and you've seen. I mean, you were involved for such a long time in Intuit. You've seen how that's developed in the enterprise, and you've also seen how it's been developing in startup land. And now I think we're starting to see maybe the hint of a beneficial dialogue. So not just enterprise cargo cult adoption of hey, there's some new buzzwords that we should employ. But an actual back and forth dialogue between enterprises actually trying to enter those startup ecosystems and engage with startups in innovative projects to partner with them, to learn from them. And also startups starting to see that enterprises are not just giant monolithic corporations out to destroy them, but might actually have some benefit to offer.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I've got a few questions to throw at you really quickly before we dive into that interview. I want to throw out a couple events for folks that are hoping to connect in person. Actually, myself and Rick Swanson are out in Silicon Valley this entire week, doing a workshop out here, and then also trying to reconnect with folks and things like that. So if actually, I think Rick is also at the Chief Innovation Officer Conference all day on Wednesday. So if any of you are out in this area and would like to try and connect in person, please don't hesitate to reach out. Also, simultaneously, Brant is out in Sydney right now conducting a couple of LEAP workshops at the Agile Australia Conference and a couple other conferences. So good chance to catch Brant if you're out in that part of the world. And then on June 27th, our next Lean Lunch with Alistair Kroll. We are also, similar to today, we're also gonna coach a team at the end of the call live for all of you to hopefully learn lots from. So got some good stuff in the works. And as always, if you are interested in some coaching or suggest we interview somebody or whatever, please leave that in the comments or email us or tweet at us, whatever medium you feel like, hit us up. And we our goal here is really to create a community of folks that are applying these principles in the enterprise and to help each other out through that process. So any ways that we can facilitate that, please let us know. So that's the end of my promo-y kind of stuff. So let's go into actually you sort of in your comments there about seeing the history of lean startup and those types of things. How did you get into this? How did you sort of get to where you are today?
Completely by accident. I was working in a larger corporation in IT security. Uh, I was working in all over the place. I started with them in the U.S., then moved to Germany and Switzerland, and eventually Taiwan and Vietnam. And I quit during the middle of the financial crisis because I was kind of done with that and wanted to move where the innovation was really happening here in San Francisco. And I got here, and somebody was like, "Oh, you want to do a startup? You should read this book, Four Steps to the Epiphany." And I did, and it was long and hard to read, but I read it, and I kind of took it as gospel. I was like, "Oh, well, this is Silicon Valley. Like, this must be the way that they do things here." And it took me actually about a year of tracking that back through Eric's blog at the time. And all of that about 5 years ago until I realized that nobody else. I was asking all these questions and nobody else knew the answers either. Lean Startup was still at such an infancy at that point that that the questions that I was asking then perhaps even still don't have an answer. There are no set best practices that will always lead you to product fit. There's no one magic framework that'll fix everything for you. But that it was a method of continuous exploration and practice. And so, working through my startup journey here in Silicon Valley was kind of a trial and error process where I really just tried to take it piecemeal, like one would learn basketball, and say, like, I'm going to practice dribbling this week. So after I closed down my first startup here, I spent 4 weeks and said, I'm going to make an MVP a week, not to make a business, but just to practice, understanding how to challenge my own assumptions and break a project down to the smallest possible increment. And even that was incredibly challenging to somebody with a very little engineering background like myself, to learn how to code at least enough to build an MVP for myself. So that's really how I came to it, just by accident, and recognizing that I know so little about so much that it behooves me to experiment my way to some small bit of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. It's in the software development world where I come from. A lot of developers will do what they call code katas, right? Similar to like karate or martial arts, right? You're repeating the patterns over and over again to try to get really good with it. I love that idea of taking individual pieces of these processes and doing exactly the same thing with them.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I couldn't agree more. I'm a avid fan of Kung Fu and Tai Chi, and the art of practice, both slow and very fast, is something that's extremely overlooked, and it amazes me how many people think of Lean Startup as something that you can just do intellectually, like I can read a book and then ta-da, or I will do a framework. I've done a smoke test, therefore I'm a Lean Startup. And that doesn't really apply in this case. It is something that needs to be practiced. It's something that needs to be learned. And it's people think it's like math, and you can just learn that by reading the book. And when you think about it, even math, like, we don't learn math from a book. You actually have to practice your multiplication tables over and over and over again. You can't just teach a child 1 + 1 = 2, and then expect the Pythagorean theorem to roll out of them. Probably a bad example because that's geometry, but.
That's all right. I think the point is well made. So let's get into some stories. So can you give us an example of something where either that you're really proud where you were able to apply these principles, or maybe a team that you were helping was able to make some success using it?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many stories. I've heard one of the benefits of being a part of Lean Startup Circle is you get to hear many different stories from all over the world, and people getting out of the building in the most ridiculous circumstances. One of the teams that I coached long time ago sent me their MVP. A couple of years later, it was like their third attempt at a startup. So I was, thrilled to see that they were still working in lean startup principles, that they hadn't abandoned. In fact, they doubled down. And despite having a tremendous amount of engineering talent, the MVP they sent me was literally photos of a piece of paper that they'd been using live with customers. And they'd just been going to coffee shops and going, "Hey, treat this as an iPad." And and it is, right? A piece of paper is a broken iPad. We all know that. And they didn't even they kind of jury rigged pieces of paper on top of the other pieces of paper, so that when somebody pushed a button, they could quickly change out the interface and show dynamically what happens in that situation. And the whole thing was hooked up to an iPod so that they could hear the music that was being played through the interface.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so like it's stories like that when I see a technical team, like a team that's perfectly capable of building something overly complicated, really breaking it down and discovering user behaviors that are extremely consistent with very simple methodology, like the user behaviors and the metrics that they got in terms of how long people were willing to listen to songs. Did they like the interface? Did they find the experience engaging? Like the experience of pushing a piece of paper around a table and listening to music. This was a blind music taste test service. Like the experience that they created with a piece of paper was almost identical to the experience they created on the website. And that to me is extremely powerful, the idea that they were able to iterate very, very quickly with almost nothing before going to a live version, which they were again then able to iterate in rapid succession. And I have a wonderful slides of I think 10 of their versions that came out one after another. So it's stories like that I really like. So I could tell you 20. Depends what you're interested in.
Yeah, no, I'm. I think a lot of people when they're first getting started, they're looking for situations that they can kind of directly connect to. Oftentimes with my teams when I'm coaching them, the first thing I'll do before anything else, meaning like when they're getting ready to create an experiment, the first thing that I'll do with them, completely separate from the experiment, is I'll have them think through, okay, in your final vision of where you want this product to go, how could you create the entire thing manually, right? You're not allowed to touch any technology. How would you create this manually, and how could you give somebody a believable experience that replicates exactly where you planned to head? And the team starts thinking through that, and they realize that actually that it is possible in most cases. There's very rarely some sort of situation where you can't do that. And it's amazing how freeing that is for them to see to realize that, oh, actually I don't need all of those technical skills, or I can sort of fake it till I make it for a little while. It's really powerful mentally for them.
Yeah, I think that's particularly true in software. I mean, it's not always the case if you're building a hardware product. We're talking to Edmunds later. It's hard to manually fake the experience of a car. Maybe Flintstone style. I'm not quite sure. Maybe they have a.
We will see, right?
But it is amazing what you can get away with either in Concierge or Wizard of Oz fashion. I like to storyboard out the experiences, but personally, the first thing I like to do is I like to give people the challenge of an existing startup, one that I know that they perhaps haven't, and tell them the vision, and then see what they can come up with in terms of an MVP, and then show them what the actual company does. So a few examples like that, and I find people are kind of laughing along and delighted in how simple it can be. If you're interested in another story, I know we have a limited amount of time. There's a guy in Manchester who I just think has the most wonderful story. He had if I'm recalling correctly, had a somewhat complicated vision of a two-sided market with music producers on one side, musicians, and blogs, a market for musical products, whether that's a soundtrack for a video that you're producing or just some background music for your spa, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And that's what he wanted to create. And his MVP, so this is a guy with no technical co-founder. He was, I believe, a student at the time, recently graduated. He told me he had 1,000 British pounds to his name. And he decided to, since he couldn't get any funding, and he couldn't get any technical co-founder, he decided to create relaxmydog.com. And if you go to relaxmydog.com, I believe it's still up. It is hysterical. It is what would on the surface appear to be the worst startup idea imaginable, that turned out to rake him a considerable amount of cash. He was selling music literally to calm your small yappy dog down. This was just music directly like to this incredible like micro niche, this super, super long tail site. And he outsourced the music, and he created a video of just this one dog calming down listening to this music. And at the end of the video it said, if you're interested in this music, you can either buy the album, or you can upload a video of your dog listening to this music and link back to my site. And if you look on his webpage, it's got like the one video he's got up there has got more than 2 million views, and some thousands, subscribers, to people subscribing to a channel which shows videos of dogs going to sleep. And when I met him, he was making 5,000 British pounds a month off of a few different long-tail micro-niche sites like this. And he was making 5,000 British pounds a month. I saw him again at South by Southwest. He was making 25,000 British pounds a month, okay, off of a 1,000 pound investment with almost no technical infrastructure at all. He had a WordPress site, I think. And all based on his idea that, well, if I can't make money like with this outsourced content from musicians, how is anybody else going to? So if I can prove to myself that it's possible to, essentially buy this outsourced music and produce value with it, then perhaps there's some feasibility of having a marketplace like that. I don't know if that's necessarily the assumption that I would have chose to test, but regardless, like it led him to this extraordinarily bizarre market that I would have completely ignored. And now he's being chased by VCs, and he has a technical co-founder, and he's able to go and pursue that larger vision.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, it's amazing the ways that you can take things and position them differently and turn it into something completely amazing. All it is a lot of times I've seen situations where we'll host back when I was at Intuit, we would host what we call a Design for Delight session. We'd try and come up with all these outside the box ideas and that kind of stuff, and you'd have a leader or the sponsor of the event or something like that. I'd hear it. I heard it so many times where they'd say, "Oh, I was hoping for some bigger ideas here. Like, these. I wish these were just more outside the box." And the fact of the matter is that it's not necessarily that the idea is outside the box. It's the combination of puzzle pieces that you put together around the business model that determines whether it ends up getting, being successful. And that example you just gave, I think, is a perfect one that showcases that, all he's doing is taking music that already exists and a crazy idea of playing it to a dog, but like the rest of it is all stuff that exists.
Yeah, it's an intriguing customer segment.
Yeah, exactly. You took one customer segment.
Yeah, I mean, I used to give the example of like, a social network for dogs as a joke example of like a ridiculous startup idea, and then somebody pointed out to me that there was a social network for dogs, and it was in fact called Dogster. So the number of things that appear ridiculous on the surface that actually turn out to be phenomenal businesses is miraculous. I mean, I used to sit in Dogpatch Labs when I first moved here to Silicon Valley, and one of the residents right a couple rows down from me was Instagram, and I remember meeting them, and what's your startup? What's your startup? And they're like, oh well, we create filters for photos, make photos look nicer. And I was just like, wow, that is dumb. Like what a useless startup, right? Like utterly no interest in hearing any more about that because I don't take photos.
Right.
But I guess the other 99.9% of the population does. there are companies like Soldsy who started out with what I thought was a wonderful idea. Also sat next to me in another incubator. They wanted to do About.me for small and medium-sized businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And that turned out to be an absolutely terrible idea. And they pivoted to something which sounds ridiculous to me. They enable people to sell through Facebook and now through Instagram by writing their email address in the public comments section. Okay, so you post a photo of a chair, and then people will post their email address with the word sold, and then Soldsy will like invoice them, and they'll actually pay and buy that chair via email. And that sounds, to anybody I've ever told in Silicon Valley, that sounds insane, because we all know that posting your email address publicly is an incredibly bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody else in the world cares. And they're doing tens of millions of dollars in business, and they're, I think, Series A+ now. So,
well, and I think the lesson for all the people that are watching to apply from all of this, I think, is that, that trying to judge whether an idea is going to be successful or not is really, really difficult. And in addition to that, you may or may not be the target customer segment. And so as leaders of large organizations attempt to try to decide which ideas, apply their Caesar capabilities and decide which ideas are going to get the thumbs up and which ideas are going to get the thumbs down, that becomes pretty much impossible. You're trying to predict the future, which humans can't do. And so I think applying these lean startup principles is a way for you to see, to measure that progress and see which ideas are successful over time versus trying to decide, because even us quote unquote lean startup guys who know this stuff pretty well, as you can hear from this conversation, even we can't necessarily pick the ideas that are winners or losers, right? So I don't think people should even try. just get out and get some data.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, as human beings, all the biases that we have as human beings, all the decision-making biases that help us survive in the wild, are incredibly bad at generating startup ideas. Mm-hmm. We only pursue the ideas that we're most passionate about, and the ideas that we're the most passionate about is the ones where we're the customer. And those are, of course, the ideas where we're the most biased, where we assume everybody is like us. That's another natural inclination. And we go out and we look for data that confirms our hunches, that confirmation bias. And all of those things are the enemies of lean, and it's so critical, I think, to have to stay calm, to not get upset when the data challenges you, but more importantly, not get upset when your teammates challenge you and say, "Hey, that's an unfounded assumption. We should test that." Like, that's something that I think is very frustrating to a lot of business angels who want to. And by business angel, I mean it could be inside the corporation, could be outside of the corporation. They want to invest in an idea they're passionate about, or perhaps it's even their idea, and they've assigned the team to go investigate it. Mm-hmm. And then when they have the team come back and tell them, like, I'm not sure that's right, we should test that, it's a very frustrating experience, and it's very hard to get past our own, or get into our own blind spots and take a peek around and see if there's something there that we should be testing, and perhaps throw away this idea and realize that our baby is in fact very ugly.
Yep, unfortunately. So we've got probably about 5-ish minutes left before the Edmunds team joins us. I'd like to continue taking the conversation down the enterprise route a little bit further. What are some other I'm totally spacing the word. So what are some interesting discoveries that you've made with applying lean startup with startups or with Lean Startup Circle or whatever is appropriate, that some of the enterprise folks can be learning from?
So it depends a little on what scale you're talking about. I think the big lesson that I've learned is, as somebody who stops working for larger and with larger companies, like in IT security, we used to have to collaborate with companies like Seagate and other hard drive manufacturers, and it was such an immense pain. Like, I hated it. It was a nightmare, and I fled that to go to Silicon Valley, right? And so when I've seen companies, enterprises, including Intuit, adopting Lean Startup, my initial reaction was like, ugh, like shivers, like this is going to be a disaster. And it's taken me a lot to realize that there are remarkable parallels to enterprises, or rather, let me say that the lessons of lean startup and the lessons of startup can be applied to enterprises, but not directly. I don't believe that an enterprise should just tell everybody like always run a smoke test before running a corporation. But enterprises within them contain not just bureaucrats and pencil pushers. They contain remarkably innovative people, people that can go out and create fantastic ideas and pursue them and test them and analyze them. But they have to treat the enterprise like an ecosystem and enable entrepreneurs to pursue those things. And when that happens, you see the same sort of passion, the same discovery, the same hard work, and the same creativity that you see outside the corporation that we see in Silicon Valley and in so many startup hubs around the world. But it's extremely easy to crush with red tape, with a lack of business support, without a sandbox, with all these individual elements that an ecosystem has. So I encourage all enterprises to look to the startup hubs that are developing, like look to the local lean startup groups. There are lessons learned there about how they're growing their ecosystem in terms of teaching skills, teaching workshops like Brant does, like you do. Also inspiration, which like I think Eric has been wonderful about. But also generating that environment, the rules which enable you to innovate faster, the business education of how a business angel, so a business unit owner can look at a startup like an angel investor would. So those lessons can be applied directly from startup ecosystems to enterprises. And that, I think, is a kind of powerful lesson to me, just to accept the fact that not all corporations are evil, that there are startups within enterprises that can really create a tremendous amount of value for customers, and that's something I really enjoy being a part of now.
I think those are really, really important points, and actually the amount of detail that you just gave in the last minute or two is probably enough to talk about for about 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think I've got 6 weeks of blog posts coming on that.
What sort of in all of that is there? So I'll ask it two ways. So for enterprises or for individuals in the enterprise that are looking to just get started, of that, what do you think is the most important? And then I'll ask the same thing for folks that are maybe a little further along. Maybe they're trying it and now they're getting a little bit more confident with it. What do you think they would focus on?
Okay, so I guess I'll try and be brief. I think for corporations just starting out, they should really, the person, that one evangelist in the company, has to apply, just like the evangelist in Qatar might want to tell everybody about Lean Startup. You can't start with a big bang. You can't start with a big launch. Buying a copy of the Lean Startup and putting it on everybody's desk is not a productive way to do this. You need to MVP Lean Startup within your company. Every enterprise is different. Every enterprise is a different ecosystem. And treating them as the same by just copying what another ecosystem is doing is kind of a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. So I really like Intuit's program, but I wouldn't just copy that wholesale into another company without understanding what the ecosystem, what the strengths and benefits and weaknesses within that ecosystem are. So create an MVP. Don't give everybody a copy of the Lean Startup. Put up a landing page and say the first 20 people that sign up will get a free copy of the Lean Startup. Find those first 5 people who are going to be your early evangelists within the company, and talk to them. Like, do customer discovery with them. Figure out what's stopping them from innovating. Is it they can't get a budget? Like, do they have the people? Can they not get the people? Do they not have the technical talent? Do they need training on how to do a customer discovery interview? Like, treat it as a Lean Startup. And I guess the second question. Okay, so answer the first question. Treat Lean Startup
beautifully
as a Lean Startup. Be as self-referential and redundant as possible.
That's beautiful. I love it. Get meta and blow people's brains up.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And the second thing, like once you've been applying Lean, so I find that it's everybody in enterprise knows the Gartner hype cycle, right? Okay, so the Gartner hype cycle is that technology curve where everybody gets super excited about something, and then they go through what Gartner calls the trough of disillusionment. So my personal advice would be prepared for that. Like at some point, you're going to have lean startup projects that fail. Like in fact, you should be having lean startup projects that fail. If you don't have at least half of your projects or half of your experiments that are failing, you're obviously not trying very risky experiments. So what are you doing? So some of your experiments will fail, and there will be a lot of people who point to that as like, oh, lean startup doesn't work, it's not worth doing, like this is non-functional. There will be teams that go through just the brutality of having to run experiment after experiment after experiment and being rejected. And you will have that point where you hit the wall, where it seems like this is a really terrible idea. And I think that's the point where you actually really start doing lean startup. When you start thinking about, are we doing this right, or are we just going through the motions? Okay, we filled out a business model canvas. Did we just throw it in a drawer somewhere and never look at it again, or are we actually iterating on it? Are we focusing on testing our assumptions? Do we have somebody from outside the team challenging us? And I don't mean that as a like go get a consultant. That can be somebody from another team within your company. But you need an outside perspective. So the point at which it most seems like all is lost inside the corporation and you've just managed to successfully indoctrinate yet another cargo cult buzz-filled conversation, that's the point at which you actually have to double down and figure out what lean really means. And as far as I'm concerned, lean is practice. You have to practice, and it is a process. So don't give up and push through that wall.
That's great advice. The I think the Edmonds team is joining us right now. Oh yeah, Ben joined us too. Nice. Got a party going on here. Awesome. Let's see here.
Hey,
we're still waiting. Hey Ben.
Speaking of Intuit. Speak of the devil.
Are you over there?
Do you have video capabilities over there, or are you just going to be an audio guy?
I think I'm just going to be audio. You'll just have to look at the blue man on the screen.
Cool, Blue Man. Can you introduce yourself real quick, Blue Man?
Yeah. Hey guys, for those of you who don't know, this is Ben Blank. I'm actually innovation leader over here at Intuit Incorporated. Also innovation catalyst, and a former colleague of Aaron there. So happy to answer questions, or I guess ask questions related to doing this stuff at scale in the enterprise.
I'll ask a question of you, Ben, if you don't mind, as long as
go for it.
The Edmonds team. So I think the Innovation Catalyst program is really interesting. I went through one of the workshops there I was invited to. I thought it was really interesting. It was very clear from even just looking at the handbook that Intuit has pulled together a lot of different kind of elements and components from different programs. Like I saw stuff there from IDEO, I saw stuff there from Janice Frazier, I saw stuff there from Lean Startup Machine, but all kind of a little bit tweaked. What was the process into it in deciding to kind of internalize that stuff?
Yeah, so I actually liked what you said a few minutes ago about how the meta comment you guys talked about, that, you know, hey, don't take something that works somewhere else. Take those things as inspiration and make them your own inside your organization. So that was really how we have always approached being inspired by what's going on outside of our walls. And so the Innovation Catalyst program, for example, obviously has strong ties to design thinking, and, you know, best practices from, you know, the D School at Stanford, you know, IDEO itself, who are, you know, that group is big friends with the folks here at Intuit. And so, you know, we think about taking those things and bringing them inside, running experiments to see. Now we would use the word running experiments, but at the time it was playing with these tools and techniques and seeing if they actually worked. And obviously, it's exactly what you said. Each organization is different, and so you've got to figure out a way to find the overlap between what works in the outside world and what will work for your culture, your, you know, leadership style, your values as a company. And we discovered that very early. I think that's one of the reasons why you know, Intuit was an early adopter of Lean Startup principles, or what has now become Lean Startup. The IC program is a great example of something we were doing 5 years ago. And, you know, frankly, in the early days, it was challenging. It didn't quite work. We struggled with it a little bit, but the team, the Innovation Catalyst team, were amazing. I mean, every couple of months they were doing a new iteration and they were doing a new version of it, so to speak, and until we got to the point where it was actually, we weren't trying to convince people to do it. They were actually, requesting help from us. So, yeah, I think that's being inspired by what's going on in the outside world, but understanding that your organization is unique and you've got to figure out a way to customize it for your own use is exactly the right way to go.
Yeah, I like that approach. It was also nice to see that I think there were two distinct side benefits to that, and just from an outsider's perspective looking at it, you guys completely avoided the not invented here syndrome, right? Because it's your program. And you also got this wonderful branding effect. People in Silicon Valley, it's no longer like Intuit. Why would I want to do accounting? Like, why would I want to work there? It's like, oh, Intuit, they're actually this cool, innovative team.
Yeah, and I think another thing I'm a big believer in, and everybody at Intuit is that once we, and it's the reason you were at the event you were at, is we're big believers in then turning around and giving that back to anybody who wants it. And so, it's not invented here, but it's also, we don't necessarily own the principles. Nobody does. And so we hope that we're contributing back to the lean startup consciousness in some way, so that others can build on that, and then we're going to get some mojo from that. And so it's kind of this virtuous cycle of pull things in, hopefully add to the spirit that is lean startup, and then push it back out and see if other folks find it valuable. And if they don't, you don't have to use it, but if you do, we hope you do. So I love that part of it.
Awesome.
So it looks like the I'll Buy It team is here from Edmonds.
Hey guys.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Sorry about our tardy. We were just getting some stuff ready. We're actually going dealership testing today. So we have our concept mocked up, and Edmonds was nice enough to set us up with some appointments. So 2 of our guys today are out just running around the town testing our concept with a few dealerships today. So we'll see how that goes.
Wait, you guys were getting work done? What?
Yeah, surprisingly. Who knows?
We were.
How are you guys doing today?
We're doing great. We were just wrapping up the interview, and why don't we've got about 20 minutes left, so I want to make sure you guys get some good value out of this, and hopefully other folks learn. So, can you guys just introduce yourselves real quick? Introduce I'll Buy It, and let us know what you hope to get out of this coaching session. How can we help?
Oh, awesome. Okay, so hey guys, my name is Salim. Over here is Shazan.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Nice.
So we're I'll Buy It. So Edmonds had this competition, Hackamotive, a few months ago. It was a startup competition to improve the car buying industry. And what we brought to the table was I'll Buy It as a price line for car buying, essentially. So what buyers do is they post ads, the cars they want, the price that they want, all the bells and whistles. And we have another side with the seller side. The sellers subscribe to our pages, and they can see these listings. So it's kind of like lead generation. The sellers would pay a premium just to get these ads on board, and they can close the deal right away. So what we really hope to bring out, from the end of this whole program, this meeting in particular, is to kind of solidify our business strategy. We have our market, we have our idea of how we want to attack them, but our strategy may be up in the air still. We've tried a couple different things. Greg, he's a Edmonds member over here. Greg Schaefer, he's been awesome at helping us build our strategy. He's teaching us a startup methodology that's a little different from what we've done. It's agile startup methodology, and it's kind of involving just testing. Build something and test it. Test it. So that's what we're kind of doing right now. So we're in the process of that, and if it doesn't go well, we're kind of just going to pivot and gear towards the direction we need to go. But we've been reaching out to everybody. You guys are awesome too. Aaron, thanks again. You're always giving us some good insight, especially at Hackamotive. But yeah, that's really what we're about.
Great. And what do you hope to get out of this call? How can we be helpful?
Okay, so a couple things. First of all, for our value propositions, we have a couple of value propositions for 2 segments. We have buyers and we have sellers. So we have a couple of value propositions that we're okay with. Do you want to pull up the Lean Business Canvas?
By Lean Business Canvas, do you mean the business model canvas or the Lean canvas?
Sorry, the business model canvas.
Okay.
Good catch.
think you can share it too, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I think he's in the process of doing that.
Cool. Well, while he's sharing, I'll let
Just
Tristan
describe who the
and Ben.
customers are?
Do either of you have questions?
Can you maybe just start by describing who the customers are, like on either side? Which side do you consider the most risky at this point?
Oh, good question. Okay, so the most risky right now, we believe, is Amy. Amy is our buyer.
Right.
She's a target demographic. Essentially, is she just young professional, just out of college? She's looking for a car. We know that she doesn't have the time to go for a car, nor does she have the money to really negotiate her prices and whatnot. So we've narrowed it down with numbers. There's exactly 454,000 Amy's in the United States per month looking for a car. From there, we got a percentage of 20%.
Yeah, 20% of that.
So we did a test last week with Edmunds, kind of like a click-through conversion rate. So we had a dummy landing page for people to come to, and there would be two options. One option was to buy an ad. One option was to browse for ads. So out of the 454,000 people per month, we got the number of 20% of these people are choosing to post an ad as opposed to browse for an ad. So that was the result of our first test. So now we know a number of people that would click through to come to our ads per month. So that kind of stopped us there on the buyer side, and we're kind of thinking of what other tests we can do to see exactly what quality buyers would come to our site and how they would show that they're quality buyer to the sellers.
I'm sorry, you said that 20% click through to sell or to buy?
To buy.
Okay, so you're saying that Amy is 80% of the 450,000?
I'm sorry, Amy is all 454,000, but there was two options for these Amy's
Okay,
to
and
click.
20%. Okay, gotcha. And
Yeah,
20% of Amy's went to sellers.
Yes, exactly. 20% of Amy decided to post an ad, like the I'll buy it format.
I think I'm about to say the same thing that Ben is about to say, so I'll let him say it.
I don't know. I can't follow that up. I was actually going to ask. A clarifying question. When you say post an ad, that means post what they want to buy and have other people bid on it?
Mm-hmm. Share the mock-ups with them so they can see
Okay.
it. Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. So they come to our site and they essentially purchase a buyer's ad. From
Okay.
there,
and then the other choice that 80% of people selected is just go search.
yeah, the choice that's on right now, just to go search for a car.
And Tristan, were you thinking I would ask why not go after the 80%?
No, I was going to ask, I thought you were going to bring up the customer Zoom tool, to be honest.
Yeah.
The what tool?
Well, so it's always a great question to find out, well, what's unique about that 20% that we're interested in posting the ad? Because maybe your customer segment is too broad, at least for starting purposes. So you might want to zoom in on the things that are interesting and unique about the Amy's. So maybe it's not just Amy, it's Amy Plus is the customer that actually is going through and posting the ad that way, since it's a very unique and different behavior than what's happening today. So that's always a thought, is dig in a little bit with those people, because right now you just have a lightweight choice they made. You don't really know if they were understanding the concept of posting an ad. Would they actually complete that process once they understood what it means? Since that's fairly different, it could be that of that 20%, 19% would go back to the old way as soon as they understand what you're doing. So you could dig in there a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So do you have any recommendations as far as testing goes? How we would be able to go about testing something like that?
Well, I would continue down the road clearly of doing lightweight tests, but keep adding more and more things for your customer to do. And so if the first step in posting an ad would be, I don't know what that would be, I don't know the product enough, but if there's some behaviors that they need to do, then I would start testing those behaviors. Those become your next leaps of faith. So if it's choose a car, then give them a list of cars to choose from. If it's select a price that they'd be willing to pay, make them choose a price. All these things those are all the cognitive burden you're going to put on the user now as they go create this ad. See at what point will that break down for them, or what point will they decide, I'll just go to the dealer, because the ultimate behavior you're trying to get here is they not only just post the ad, but actually go through the whole transaction of buying a car. And so you just need one Amy on the planet to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't need. 20% of markets and things like this. Although those numbers are great as far as market sizing and understanding the opportunity, but at some point you just need one AMI going all the way through so that you can figure out, okay, what actually works or doesn't, and then you can try to get your second AMI and then your third AMI, and then eventually you'll get to your 20%. But for now, just one AMI going all the way through would be what in my opinion would be more interesting for you to figure out.
I would piggyback one really small suggestion on top of what Ben was just saying, which is that make sure that as you continue to build out the process, that you've got a way to follow up with the people that are going through it. So you should be, as many as possible, you should be talking to all of the AMIs that went through your 20% and probably some of the ones that went to the 80%, but talk to them to find out why they made that choice, why that was important to them, and understand more about them.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
How many AMIs have you talked to so far?
We've talked. So the way this test worked was it's through Edmunds. So they had numbers already done, and they had links for traffic. So we personally haven't done tests with people individually. It was just broadcasted on Edmunds' website, and they clicked through themselves.
So that would be 0.
Yeah. So we've talked to 0.
So
not to give you guys a hard time, but
no, it's cool. No worries at all. We love constructive criticism. We're cool.
Yeah. So I would actually probably back up in that case. So just from the first thing you said, we have a customer persona AMI. By the way, kudos for naming your customer persona. That is an oft overlooked step. It makes, it avoids that 4-hour conversation where you guys are arguing about the features that you should implement, and at the end of 4 hours, it turns out that you were both arguing about the user preferences, and you were talking about 2 different users.
Thank you.
Naming the customer persona is actually a really lovely thing. But when you say something like, we have AMI, and AMI is a set of demographics that you've established, and 20% of AMIs do this. Like, the moment you say a percentage of your persona does this or that, it automatically says that you're not segmented in a way that makes sense for your business.
Okay, that makes sense.
You have AMI, and you have Andrew, or whoever is the buyer.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And you need to understand, I do like the customer Zoom tool. I'm a big fan of Luxor's persona methodology, but in any of these ways of describing your customer, you need to have unique identifiers. You need to have observable behaviors. Like, what is Amy doing now? Is she posting on Craigslist? Is she going to the dealership? Is she unhappy there, et cetera, et cetera? And ideally, you want to have some idea of the causality behind here. Like, why does Amy have no time or no money to negotiate price? And if you understand that in a really targeted sense, it won't be 450,000. It'll be a much smaller number. But you're going to have such a strong understanding of the customer that you're going to be able to do what some teams I've seen do, which they'll have something ridiculous like a 50 to 80% conversion rate on their landing page, because they understand the customer so well that they know that if somebody is like this, they always want our product.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Every single time. And that's the type of ideal customer persona you want. So I think smoke tests are great, but a smoke test evaluates a hypothesis you have. Yeah. And right now, your hypothesis is so vague, people look for cars. Like, okay, I believe you, people look for cars. But that's not a falsifiable hypothesis. There's no test that you could have run. There's no result that you could have had on that smoke test which would have convinced you that this is a bad idea. Right? So you need to stop doing, in my opinion, you need to do that, but do that a little bit later. Go talk to the customers and come out with a very clear falsifiable hypothesis of who they are, what their pain is, in what context do they have this pain, right after college, what's going on.
Yeah, so one of the problems that we had, we were even talking with Greg about it too, it's kind of like a chicken and the egg problem. What came first? So we have two sides. We have the dealership, the sellers, and we have the buyers. One of the questions that came up is, for the sellers, how do they know that these leads are quality buyers? And that was kind of a big roadblock for us, and we're still kind of working to figure out how we can prove to the sellers that we're producing quality buyers. So I was wondering if y'all had any input on that.
Have you talked to the sellers?
That we're at the dealerships right now. Actually, two of us are there talking to.
The dealerships are the ones who are going to be selling this thing on Priceline?
Yeah.
Ah, okay, great.
So, sorry if I didn't clarify that. Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, so the dealerships are the sellers. They will subscribe to our services, and they will pay a premium price which we're still working on the price. Right now we say it's $75, but we really haven't done any price pointing strategies yet. But they're going to pay per lead essentially. So that's how they would get these leads and close them.
And so the thing you want to understand is what will convince these sellers that it's a quality buyer?
Yes, and then on the buyer side, they pay $30 for a lead to post. So we're hoping that that barrier to entry is enough to show that they're quality buyers, but we're testing that today. We're actually out of the two of us, our CEO and our guy with operations, his name is Salim as well. They're testing that the dealership's asking these questions and functionalities about our website.
That sounds great to me.
Awesome.
I wouldn't change anything about that.
That's cool. Yeah, so that's what we're kind of trying to do right now.
Have a comment, but sounds like exactly what you should be doing.
Awesome. Yeah, it's honestly this Edmunds team. They got us in the right path. They're challenging us very well, so it's definitely working out. So after that, I think the next step will definitely be to do what you said. We should take a step back and go look at our customers again on the buyer side, because we already know what a quality lead would be for the seller. So now we need to go ask the buyers how they would feel about clicking through a certain way, or what would show their quality to a seller.
Yeah.
So I definitely.
What is the quality lead from a seller perspective? Is it just that they will then go buy a car? I mean, is it that simple, or?
So we had the chance to interview a couple of people at Edmunds yesterday that work really closely with internet sales managers, and they were telling us a few different things. One of them just, blatantly said if they come in, if they're ready to buy a car within 30 days, that makes them a quality lead. But then they're also, we're saying there has to be pre-qualification purposes with loan and financials. So then it raised the question to us if we should even get involved with helping them pre-qualify for a loan on our site. But that's a whole different step. So we're still not really sure what a quality lead is for a seller. But hopefully by the end of Thursday is when we'll be done with our testing. We're going out today, tomorrow, and Thursday, so we should get about 15 to 20 dealerships advice and feedback on what it is to be a quality lead for them. Because right now, according to our numbers at least, it's Edmunds numbers, that these sellers are paying about $30 to $35 for a lead, and their closing rate is about 5 to 10% on them. So we're, our end game hopefully is, yeah, you're going to pay a premium, but your closing percentage is going to be significantly higher. And we can't dish out a number just yet because we have to do testing first to find out what that number would be.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're doing the right thing. So.
Cool. Yeah. So, do you have any other feedback by any chance, as far as the direction we're going in? I know we got the recommendation to step back, look back at our buyers, which definitely is very valuable. Thank you. That'll be our next step. It'll have to be.
Are you guys a dedicated full team? How many people in your team?
There's 4 of us here, and then there's one. He's our developer with his partner. They're doing all our back end, integrating the API, and then we have a girl that's a friend of ours that she's designing our website.
Okay, so you actually have a kind of cross-functional team available for you.
Yeah, we all actually grew up together, every single one of us on the team. So it's just we're bringing our family in together to just do what we do.
Awesome.
So I think I might reiterate what I was saying before, that if you can get just one Amy to go through whatever process you have, and then connect her with just one dealer, and then actually have the transaction complete, I would be, and I know there's a lot of detail in there obviously, but conceptually, that's what you want to get to as quickly as possible, and see if you can get one, because in doing that, you'll observe all the problems and challenges that will come from it. It could be that your first attempt, the dealership won't like it, or Amy will drop out halfway through because it turns out she was really just window shopping, or it turns out she gets freaked out when the dealer asks her this question, or all these things are going to come up. I would think about it, how do I get one Amy to buy a car, even if you have to walk her physically through the whole process, almost as a guide. In the lean startup folklore, it would be a concierge or mechanical Turk type of experiment you're running, but it's really not so much an experiment as it is in trying to create that end-to-end experience. Okay. So that you can see and observe what's happening with the purpose of learning, not necessarily validating, but just going through it with an Amy, and then trying it again and again. It'll probably take 4 or 5 times. rather than just going out and sort of talking to dealerships. I mean, you should definitely do that and take the data that you generate, but creating a more behavioral response from even the dealerships as well will be really important.
Yeah, I understand. So would you recommend that we make this transaction with an Amy? You recommend we do this before we even launch our site, right? As in, just find an Amy and then find a dealership, put them together, and see how that process went, and then cater it from there. That's what you're recommending?
Tristan, nod your head for me.
He was. I can't get the little blue head to bounce on your icon.
I know,
Sorry,
I'm trying to make my little blue head bounce. It's not working. I just look like a robot or something. But exactly what Tristan said. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we'll definitely do.
But you need to find a real Amy.
Yeah.
So,
hey, you got 20% over there sitting there to grab, right?
Yeah, you've got some of those leads. Grab some of them. See if you can find some that are local, and then walk them through the process.
Okay, yeah, that's fantastic advice, and we'll work on that tomorrow. Like, why not? That's awesome.
Yeah, you've got a whatever 5 or 6 person team, so look for those opportunities to subdivide, just like you're already doing. You got some people out with the dealerships, you got some other people working on other things. So,
okay, maybe I'll disagree with that. So I see that a lot of startups. So some startups are really good at that, at sort of subdividing the tasks. But some startups are utterly horrible at that. And I found that people throw around the phrase divide and conquer very readily. They say, let's just divide and conquer, and 2 of us will go over here and do that, and 2 of us will go over here and do that. And that's not what that phrase means. That phrase means divide the enemy and conquer them. Don't divide yourselves and be conquered. It is faster to me for everybody to focus on one thing. Like if you can all go out today, and pairs of you can go out and interview 5 Amy's each, and then you can come back together at the end of the day and come up with a really strong, clear hypothesis of who Amy is. That is much better to me than sending one person out for a week to talk to 5 Amy's. The benefit of many perspectives is extremely valuable, and more hands make light work. So divide the problem into small bits and consume it, but don't divide your team and try and attack many different problems and many different customer segments at once. I find that, again, some teams are really awesome at that, but you're probably not the 0.001% that is.
Yeah, we usually kind of work together. Even if it's separate tasks, we'll be in different rooms, kind of just talking it out. So, yeah, hopefully we stick to that methodology as far as making sure we stay on the right track and not dividing up and losing time, valuable time.
And I think that's good advice in general. Is that whoever is leading the team is there like a a sort of leader of the group?
Yes. Yes.
That person, you're playing the role of the leader on the team, and so you own the outcome of how things go and all of this stuff, right? So I think you're taking it the right way, which is this is just feedback on ways to think about what to do next.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you've got the power of owning the outcome, and so I think you guys are doing a great job so far. So I think that's great. That's great advice. Don't slice and dice your team in a way that would dilute your efforts or feels sort of unnatural to the team, because each team has its own sort of flavor, and so you want to honor that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I'll ask one kind of last question for you guys. If you have an idea today and you want to implement it, like how fast are you going? Kind of, what's your iteration velocity right now?
Okay, so let's say so we came up with the dealership idea on Thursday. Greg got us got us in touch with one of the salespeople at Edmunds on Friday. She emailed us over the weekend saying we're going out Tuesday to Thursday. So
okay. Never mind.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. Honestly, the way we're going, it's great. Edmunds again is they're fantastic. If we try to do this process along by ourselves, it would take us at least 3 or 4 more days on top of it, just to get the meeting set up with the dealerships. So they're keeping us on a fast track over here.
One last question. So do you have somebody like Ben and Aaron, or just some other entrepreneurs that you can bounce an experiment off of?
Yes. So his name is Greg Schaefer. As far as entrepreneur, he's not an entrepreneur. He's our project manager over here for our company in particular at the Fastlane program. So whenever we do have questions or ideas, he'll throw us in the direction of the people that need to hear it. So, for example, the salesperson, Cindy, she's the one that's taking us to the dealerships. And then we spoke with internet sales managers. And then Serge's mentor, he's a professor at SMU, Harvard PhD. He's a big mentor for us as well. He's been just keeping us in the right path, just left and right, telling us everything that we need to know. Very accessible.
Great. So that was the only other thing I was going to suggest as a general principle. I think it's kind of the unstated principle of lean startup is that we can never see our own blind spots, and it's very, very helpful to have somebody that's exceedingly annoying and asks all sorts of stupid questions that poke holes in our business. So if you have people like that, and you feel comfortable enough to call them up on the phone and say, hey, I was thinking of designing this experiment. Do you think this is a good experiment, or will I get the results will I learn what I'm looking to learn out of this experiment? Then that's the most valuable thing you can possibly have from an outside perspective, like your project manager or your professor.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
Awesome. Yeah, there's like 1,000 entrepreneurs who are willing to do that for you, so hopefully you're willing to do it.
You got to stay connected. That's all you got to do.
Yeah. Awesome. Exactly. You sound fantastic. Sounds like a great team. I'm looking forward to seeing some of this come to life.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, and thank you very much for the feedback, guys. We really do appreciate it.
Do you have a Twitter handle that we can follow or something if we want to keep track of your progress?
Absolutely. So it's at our company name at @I'llBuy_it.
At
I'llBuy_it.
I'll buy.
ILLBUY_IT.
Yes.
I typed it in the chat. Is that correct?
Nice. Yes, it is.
Cool. All right, good. I'll post it up in the comments as well on the video for anybody that might not be watching live as well.
Okay. Awesome.
Cool. Well, good work, guys. Definitely keep us in the loop on how things are going, and it's exciting to see the things. I think for those out in the enterprise land, I think this is there's quite a few lessons to learn from this down at the tactical level, as well as looking at what Edmunds is doing with regard to helping to accelerate startups that are complementary to their business model and those types of things as well. So lots to learn. We'll actually have Ishmael from Edmunds on the program, I think in July at some point, to talk about what they're doing with that program. So more detail there. Ben and Tristan and also the I'll Buy guys, thank you very much for joining us. Any last word, suggestions, things you want to make sure that folks hear about before we wrap up?
Could you guys, by any chance, drop your emails in the group chat? If I just have a chance to follow up with you later on, touch base with you, let you know what we're up to, see if you have any feedback.
Yep. Yeah, mine. I'll tell you right now. That way, for folks that are watching, if they want to use them, they can. Mine is Aaron@movestheneedle.com. Can I say yours noisily, Tristan?
Should go for it.
I@MNOTANINJA.com.
That is awesome. That is so awesome.
Yeah, and if you can get that just from the audio, kudos to you. But otherwise,
yeah, exactly.
You can always try and email me.
We'll put it in the comments.
Kromer.com will probably work.
And I'll ask Aaron to share my my email address with you guys too, so you can ask direct questions as well.
Beautiful.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. We do appreciate it.
And if you know of anybody else that wants some help, connect them with us.
Oh, absolutely,
folks. So.
Absolutely, we will.
Awesome. Thanks a bunch, guys. Have a great day.
Take care.
You too. Thanks.
All right, see you guys. Thanks for having me.